What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's video. So before I start, just a little trigger warning. So obviously, as you can see by the title, this is a video where I go into different sexual, physical abuse placements. So, viewers' discretion is advised, as they say. Hope you enjoy the video. Just know that there are different placements that can lead to this, but no placement can 100% guarantee that something like this, the link between astrology and something like this. So enjoy. All right, guys. What's up, guys? Welcome to another Cosmos Sessions. Today is a special one. We're going to be talking about trauma indicators in the natal chart. Let's roll the intro and get into the video. Okay, so first of all, I don't know if this microphone is going to die, so I have to have it here, so hopefully it survives. But the first one I will start with is Pluto in a difficult aspect to Mars. So, square opposition, in conjunct, even conjunction, depending on what planets or what signs and house and many factors. But I've often with this one seen issues around PTSD. And a lot of people, when it comes to physical or sexual abuse, having suffered through this. So, when you combine Pluto and Mars, it is, it does represent that very, very explosive mix. So I remember reading a book, I think it was by Liz Green a long time ago, and she was talking about this placement, or this placement in the chart of people who she was relating. I think it was her relating it to sexual abuse and domestic abuse. So it can, especially with the opposition, you really have to be careful with that one. So yep. So besides that, and I guess while we're on that topic of sexual abuse, and it's not something like when I do readings for people I look for. If someone wants to talk to me about it, but Neptune in the 8th, Chiron in the 8th, I think that I've seen these both signify that potential. And also a retrograde Mars, I've seen it do the same thing. So, with the Neptune in the 8th house, it could reflect a lot of things, and in no way am I saying everyone that has this placement, has experienced this, but it could, refer to a betrayal by someone they trusted. So, based on the other planets in the chart, it could be related to this. And because the 8th house does represent sexuality and that deep vulnerability, Chiron there can represent, a wound in that area. So, I have seen that one a good amount. And just to say it again, I have seen so many clients, and obviously, people aren't telling me everything. I have to write my timestamps, but people aren't telling me everything about their lives. But a lot of people that I know with those placements have not had those things happen. So anyways, okay, now let's talk about Scorpio moon. So let me write this down, guys. Sorry, it is okay. So so Scorpio moon obviously is very difficult. a lot of people with it. Obviously, you have to look at the aspects. I mean, the biggest trauma indicator is a difficult aspects with the moon in general. But well, there's a lot. There's a lot. Pluto, I see. So, yeah. But anyways, usually people with Scorpio moon, I mean, I've heard everything, from the parents, or just the nurturing being very, very difficult, not being wanted, like an accidental pregnancy, the mother having been very stressed when pregnant. And yeah, a lot of times it's someone who, by nature, right, a Scorpio moon, they experience the darker side of reality from a young age. So there could have been, emotional or physical abuse, and a lot of times it's like, if you think of the root chakra and feeling of security, and of course, as a Scorpio moon, they're very, very emotional, right? It's a water moon. So it can be very, very difficult for someone with that to go through something, where they had, parents that weren't able to meet these needs. With that said, Scorpio moon is, I wouldn't say, like, I'm not going to make a blanket statement ever. Like, every Scorpio moon has gone through a traumatic event, but in my experience, it is a very difficult moon sign, especially for men, because men tend to hold a lot more in, and a Scorpio moon is someone that needs to be able to speak about their emotions. So, yeah. But the key with Scorpio moon is that transformation, right? So it can create this unbreakable person who, can go through the most difficult of difficult and make it through, right? But ultimately, it's all about letting go, right? It's all about being able to let go. So yeah, they can turn what could have been something very, very difficult into something that's very, very strong, where they're deeply powerful people. Nothing can kill a Scorpio moon, and it's like they evolve and reach this amazing maturity where it's like they've lived so many different lives within this one life, right? So besides that, let me think. Yeah, like perinatal trauma, like I was saying before, is very common, and especially people who have, yeah, I mean, the Hades moon, right, where there's Pluto, well, actually, yeah, if you add Pluto, Pluto to the equation, conjunct. All right, so everything just got messed up. My video, or my microphone stopped recording. So starting off where I was, I talked for like 3 minutes unnecessarily. But I was saying, that I was getting into, but then I decided that, this is for a different video, to talk about the Hades moon, which is when Pluto, it's a Scorpio moon, or any type of moon conjunct or square or opposite or quincunx Pluto. So this is it's a whole different story, right? This adds so much more, and I don't want to go fully into it in this video. Um, but yeah, what I can say about Scorpio Moon is they're so resilient, and there's that choice, and that's why I was saying, and I hope I'm not repeating myself. I don't think I am, but that it's more difficult for men because they have to be able to speak their deepest emotions, right? That's why it's so difficult for people who have Scorpio moons, but maybe like a Leo rising or a Sag sun, or Gemini, like these very like external, like who that they seem like way more extroverted and less deep, but then they have that Scorpio moon. And, so it goes for any of the really sensitive moon signs. But yeah, so yeah, they can become very emotionally powerful people, or just powerful people in general. But like the negative manifestations when they use that power, for negative, right? Like in a low vibe Scorpio ways, manipulating, trying, like look at P. Diddy. That's a good example. that's a perfect example of our current times of a low vibe Scorpio, lowest vibe. So yeah, it's really like when they like, because they can have so much like anger, and just difficult energy, or a difficult, it can just be so difficult for them to, to look at their child, and they could have felt so disempowered that they can either, take that within, and transform it, and let go, and go through that scorpionic growth process, or they allow the insecurities to sort of, or that feeling of being disempowered to just, simmer within them, and they take it out on other people. So yeah, just potentials. So yeah, if you have Scorpio moon, or Scorpio, in general, remember, it's all the high low manifestation. Um, so I have to write down. So the next one is, Pluto in, hard aspect to moon or sun. And yeah, so basically with this one, I mean, we already kind of talked about Pluto, but yeah, I mean, a lot of times with this, one or both parents, there's some type of, like, there's a lot of power struggle. I've seen it, like, it's interesting, for like, as an astrologer, I've seen a lot of families that appear to be the perfect family, and I've seen like charts of the members in the family. I was just doing this with a student the other day, the family I know well, and seeing all these Pluto aspects was just so interesting. And it just showed like this family that showed themselves as the perfect family, but really, like, I could tell how much trauma and how much secrecy and how much you know darkness and dominance, and yeah, all that. So a lot of times, like, the kid with this, could have felt like their parents were, there's a power struggle there, or that the parents are so, like, hawking all over them. Like, I have a friend where, yeah, her parents, it's just like maybe they've calmed down a little bit, but they just would always, like, just, they were so overly protective of her that, yeah. And it can come from a place of love, but um oftentimes, like, I've seen it a lot with narcissistic parents, and it goes back to the theme of the Scorpion that I was just talking about, right? Of being very aware of the darkness of the world, so it can make someone quite cynical. But yeah, it can also relate to different traumas, and there's so many different placements, covered when you talk about Pluto Moon, Pluto Sun, but overall, it's through these deep traumas, whether they're micro traumas or major traumas, that pushes one towards growth, right? So a lot of clients of mine have, for example, Pluto square moon. I see it a ton. Um, but yeah, so what I've noticed too is that people with this can end up being sort of control freaks, or they can, you know maybe from a lack of control early on, try to control everything as they grow older, and it can go into their relationships as well, and, like, be very, very possessive, um wanting to impose themselves on others. So you see it all comes from this place of feeling disempowered. um but yeah, like I said before, with the Scorpio, with time, everything can be leveraged into his strength. And yeah, I think that, um, like with the Pluto moon, it's, yeah, it is about that transformation and that push towards that karmic transformation, and getting away from, like, being more aware of your unconscious patterns, right? So sometimes it takes a certain parent, or a certain, um, way of growing up to really show that. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, a lot of times, like with clients of mine, it's about breaking the generational curse. So yeah. Anyways, so next, I've seen this one a lot, is the moon. Just a lot of Neptune energy. A lot of Pisces. Um, how do I describe this? Like the moon and Neptune together, or just a lot of Pisces, um, Neptune aspects, 12th house energy. So I guess I would call this one, Neptunian energy. And let me just write this down. So, hey, Ezme. Ezme's beneath me. So yeah, so what this can bring is, especially if we're talking about Neptune square moon, I see this a lot, where they can hold on to their mother's trauma a lot, or different negative emotions, shame, guilt, or sadness. They could have, with the Neptune, the energetic boundaries, there's a sponge for energy, so they can take on this very, very difficult energy and go their whole lives thinking that it belongs to them when really it doesn't. I've had a lot of clients where I told this to, and they've had massive revelations in the session, like, wow, oh my God, I always thought this was mine. This makes so much sense. And Neptune, it hides things, it makes things very foggy. So, yeah. Um, how the people with Neptunians, how they're such sensitive souls, that how they were raised is so important. It's very easy as kids for their root chakras, their feeling of security, to be dismantled and thrown out of balance, right? Obviously it depends on the whole chart. If they have some earth energy, that can help with that, with keeping that stability, but generally that's how it is. And I think it shows up a lot in adult relationships. A lot of times they can be, you know, um, yeah, they can kind of shut down, and they definitely need a lot of space, which isn't necessarily trauma, but there can be this escapism that can result. Whether it's running away from emotions or using drugs and alcohol. So really confronting what's beneath the surface is so important with everything. But yeah. And oftentimes I've seen with some of the Neptune aspects, substance issues with the parents, or just very neglectful upbringing, where the parents were either not there physically, like a 12th house sun or moon, not there physically or not there metaphorically, or just had like a very weak influence. They had a lot of problems of their own. Um, so yeah, and I've seen it where there's parental disaccord between the two, or a divorce, but that could go for anything. I don't look at that and say, oh, there's a divorce. But the main thing is that the child takes on energy so deeply and feels it so deeply, and parents can be very, very imperfect people, like everyone. So um, if you have a Neptunian child, for example, you got to be very, very careful and really make sure to nurture them. But they might not show, Ezme, they might not show that need. So yeah, and because Neptune can lack identity, this can be very, very difficult too, because especially if they don't have solid role models, they can look for idols, whether it's celebrities or people at school, and be very gullible or very impressionable. right? So that could lead to its own trauma, or with the escapism, if when they find drugs and alcohol in high school or whenever, they can it can and you add that with that lack of boundaries and lack of being able to say no, and seeing the best in people and trusting people too much, like it could just like lead to a lot. So it's really important to teach kids who have this boundaries, and to make it so they feel comfortable talking to you about everything. It's not good to, and this goes for the Pluto also, right? And just in general, it's not good to create a dynamic where the kid's going to be afraid to tell you things, right? So, yeah. Um, And I've seen a lot like with on the subject of divorce, where the kid feels like on an unconscious level, if the parents get divorced, that it was their fault, right? Um, Neptune just tends to cloud things. So it can also lead to an over or under idealization of um, the childhood or of the parents. I think, as a defense mechanism, for example, saying like, "Oh yeah, my dad was great," but really it was horrible. My childhood was, it was really great, and they can also have like very bad memories around it. It's also a very big one for for Neptune, I see. Um, so I'm looking through my list here. Mm. I guess we could talk about I could talk about Pluto on the IC. That is one I have. Um, 1 second. So yeah, Pluto on the IC is very difficult because the IC, it relates to our childhood. It relates to our unconscious. It's sort of the base of it's the base of our chart, so it represents the base of us. So it's very, very hard for us to access it. So Pluto in the IC refers it's childhood trauma. Like your the kid did not feel safe in their early nurturing um, environment, right? So goes back to that whole thing about the root chakra. I've seen a lot of people with this have addiction issues. I've seen a lot of people with this just really have a hard time kind of in those first, in those developmental years. Um, but it's not always that they had some major trauma, right? Now, this goes to the whole past life trauma thing. Like in my case, I have the nodes square Pluto. Pluto on the IC square the nodes. So my trauma, a lot of it, there is some trauma, yes, but no major trauma that I remember. But I don't think that there's any um, like major trauma. But when I like that was one of the biggest things I ever learned about astrology for myself was like, oh, it's square the nodes, like that's coming from past lives. So yeah, and that's a whole different video of past life trauma, and I highly advise people to get a reading from me to because every chart is just so different, and you have there's just so many factors. Hey, Esme, come on, you've been so helpful today with the reading. Come on, Esme. Here's my magical cat. Follow her on Instagram at Ezme EZME Cat Astrology. But yeah, so not feeling safe, very explosive volcanic home environment often. Um, and what can happen is because it can boil in the unconscious and really make it so unless you go into that darkness and transform from the in a place that might be very unconscious and very hard for you to access, very inaccessible, it can prevent you from reaching your dharma, your maximum dharma, right? Like the highest energy for you in this lifetime. So it's really important for people with Pluto or any tough planet on the IC to go into that childhood and to feel and to not hold on to resentments, right? Resentments are just it's what's the quote? Having resentments for someone is like drinking poison and thinking that someone else will get sick from it. Now, I'm not saying to not have boundaries. Like if you have a very horrible narcissistic father or mother or something like that, I'm not saying to not have boundaries. Those are two different things. But at least on your side, if you're able to, it's like you're keeping your garden clean, right? And you're able to, and that's like when I teach astrology one-on-one. If anyone's interested, send me a message on Instagram or email me. But we learn so much about the charts of people, special people in my students' lives, and I do this in family readings too, that's a custom order if anyone's interested. But you gain so much compassion for like the narcissistic father, but then you see that he has Saturn on his son and like very tough moon aspects. It just helps gain compassion. But back to what I was saying, not to get too off. Ezme. Let's show Ezme. That's my Astrocat with her ascendant exactly to the degree, not to just the degree, to the degree and minute conjunct my North Node. And she actually helps me for every reading. I'm not even joking. I'll make a video on Ezme. Ezme, you need your own video, don't you? She talks too. But yeah, so I could say more, but it really goes into like the same, a lot of the themes we've been talking about. This has been a very Plutonian video. Okay, so next, what do I want to talk about? Now I'm kind of freestyling. Well, I've been freestyling the whole time, but more so now. No. Yeah, like kind of to the same point. Just any planets, like if it's Mars, Chiron, Saturn, obviously Pluto, like I just said, like that, conjunct the IC, it's very, very difficult, right? There's a lot more. This is more of like a part one. Um, Obviously, in my last video, go watch it if you haven't seen it. I talk about Black Moon Lilith hard aspects. That's a big one. We could go into the whole Venus and because Venus ultimately rules self-love. So people who have difficulty there with respect to their Venus can have a lot, like especially like Venus Pluto, right? That can be a self-hatred aspect. Venus Saturn really difficult, and yeah. So I'm just gonna leave it there for now, though. Maybe those are some ideas for other ones. Let me know what you guys think. I appreciate it. And if you are looking to book a reading, it should be all, I should have it in the bio. But please leave a like and subscribe. I think like 70 or 80% of people who watch this don't subscribe. I really appreciate it. I'm putting a lot of work into these videos and being consistent. And yeah, I would love this to grow. And Ezme would be very happy with you too, because she wants to have her own Instagram, don't you, Ezme? And yeah, let me know in the comments if you want to see an Ezme origin story video soon. You'll have to remind me because I'll forget everything I said in this video. But yeah, she has a crazy life story. She survived the cold Romanian mountains and immigrated to Argentina. And she's a very, very mystical light being cat. I'm not even joking about that. Like she's super, super, super special. Not just saying that to every cat owner and every parent says that, and I'm not denying that, but I'm telling you, Ezme is like one in a billion in terms of what she does magic wise. It's crazy. I have some insane stories. Yeah, I mean, those are my children. Mika also. Um, Ina, she's learning. But yeah, let me know if you guys want to see that type of video. And I break down my cat's astrology. and can show you guys like the synastry. But really, yeah. Either way, let me know what aspects you guys have, and yeah, if you want to get a reading or take one-on-one astrology lessons, go to my Instagram just at Jesse Innocent Astro or my website jesseinnocentastrology.com. Thank you so much. I appreciate the support, guys. Ciao.